As Jim Harbaugh says, don't get bitter, get better. Maybe that should be our new motto here at the Voice of College Football. Welcome in, everyone, a Big Ten Live show. For a final time during the offseason officially, although no Big Ten teams in action this Saturday for Week 0. Notre Dame and USC highlight the weekend. And then, of course, the Big Ten gets into play. Nebraska, Minnesota, a week from Thursday. All right, the story of the day, of course, Jim Harbaugh and the self-imposed 3-game suspension by the University of Michigan. We will read through it. We will take your comments, your questions, and, of course, your calls. We've left the link in the chat, so please give us a call. It's, again, the Big Ten Live Show. We're going to talk spoilers in the Big Ten, what teams could spoil championship aspirations for the rest of the conference, but we start with the news of the day. That was a ban of 4 games that was then rescinded, and now a self-imposed ban of 3 games. So who knows what else is going to transpire between now and the season opener against East Carolina, but I think most likely it's going to be a 3-game self-imposed ban. So this coming in from Adam Rittenberg of ESPN. Michigan self-imposed a 3-game suspension for football coach Jim Harbaugh, alleged violations during the COVID-19 dead period. While the ongoing NCAA matter continues through the NCAA process, today's announcement is our way of addressing mistakes that our department has agreed to in an attempt to further that process. We will interpret soon. Athletic Director Ward Manuel said in a statement, "We will continue to support Coach Harbaugh. His staff are outstanding student athletes, etc." Harbaugh released his statement, "Don't get bitter, get better. I will continue to do what I always do in telling our players and kids at home." Okay. The announcement did not include an announcement of an interim coach. Of course, we've got Sharon Moore, the offensive coordinator. We've got Jess Minter, the defensive coordinator. They are candidates, of course. The 3 games that we're talking about, Michigan's out-of-conference games at home against the likes of East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green. Key in all of this, in terms of the football side of things, is that Jim Harbaugh will be coaching the team in practice for 6 days per week. I don't know if that's a full day suspension. That would be a good question to be asked. Is that a full Saturday suspension? Meaning the last activity or interaction with the team would be at the end of Friday and then not to be continued until Sunday morning? Or is it just a game suspension? So Jim Harbaugh's involved with whatever preparations and activities with the team, breakfast and so forth on Saturday morning, and then can address the team after the game or at some point. So not necessarily a specified situation for Saturday. We thought back in July that the violation had been responded to and that we had a decision made that would stick, the 4-game suspension. However, and I don't claim to be in the know concerning where the disconnect was, because that was an NCAA suspension. It was a negotiated resolution and a 4-game suspension at the time to begin the season, but the NCAA Infractions Committee rejected the agreement earlier this month. So why that would not go through the Infractions Committee before it was finalized and announced, that makes no sense to me. This is the first time I remember or recall off the top of my head that we would have a penalty, a suspension, a discipline announced. They're confident enough to the point that it was announced, and then the Infractions Committee comes in and says, no, reject the agreement. We still are investigating. So now the University of Michigan steps in with the 3-game suspension, which I think is a measure of goodwill to say we have acknowledged the issues. We have acknowledged the violations. We believe that we need to pay a penalty for this. Coach Harbaugh does, and therefore here's the 3-game suspension. So I think it's an act of goodwill to get on the side the uh, good side of the infractions committee. Will be coaching during the week. It says it right here. The action is designed to soften the potential ruling from the NCAA. So there are level 1 and level 2 violations. I lost track of how many of each. I knew I had that at some point. This is the second go through on this story, and I've read a couple of different versions. ESPN, The Athletic had a little bit more involved. So again, the school is trying to get ahead of this, trying to soften the blow. Impermissible on and off campus recruiting during the COVID-19 dead period. Okay, we've seen enough. We've done enough. We've gone through it enough. Now we will hear from you. And basically, my conclusion to this was the most obvious, as was reported in this story and elsewhere. If any time a school self-imposes a penalty, they are trying to, especially in this case, because Harbaugh did not cooperate. He did not in any way make it easy on the NCAA. So Michigan is trying to do this for him because there was not that olive branch extended initially by Jim Harbaugh. So this is Michigan's way of trying to get in front of this. And there will most likely be more penalties. Could you imagine if this was something that the NCAA Infractions Committee got a hold of and was able to vet through all the way before the end of this 2023 season? Because before the self-imposed penalty, it appeared as though we were going to make it all the way to the off season, at which time we may not even have a Jim Harbaugh as head coach at Michigan. First of all, he may flee to the NFL. Number two, we would have similarly some type of infractions and penalties that would include off-season type of penalties, recruiting visits, recruiting time, on-campus visits, all of those things. And even if it did extend into the 2024 season, probably just an additional game, 2 games. And I don't know Michigan's schedule off the top of my head for 2024, but maybe additional cream puff games. But if the infractions committee can vet this through, can investigate, go through the process, and come to a conclusion, they've had certainly enough time, that maybe this impacts the 2023 season even further. All right. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. We do have Mike on the line. Let's go to Mike's call. Mike, how you doing today?
I've been better. How you doing, Mark?
I'm sure you've been better. I'm doing okay.
I am just very much not a fan of this. It seems like a lot of the details were kind of misconstrued. It's like you hinted to. He didn't lie to the infractions committee. He basically just told them to prove your case. And
Yeah, he didn't cooperate.
yeah,
Yes.
in the situation, it wasn't like he intentionally invited recruits. There were a couple recruits that had already committed to Michigan that just happened to show up on campus without any type of warning to Harbaugh or anybody in the coaching or athletics staff.
According to whom?
Well, okay, there's that too. According to the university and or Harbaugh, so there was no premeditated meeting. It's just, I mean, reports say that they just showed up on campus, and he just happened to, they were already there, so they ate. So it wasn't like a technical recruiting violation. It was just kind of the gray points of the law. And my camera keeps going out.
Well, I got to think it was technically a recruiting violation, but one that, if we can get past the rules themselves and use a little common sense, everything that you said, if proven, should soften the blow, because there should be some understanding that there's a difference between inviting players on campus during a downtime and then just, even if it's still not allowed once the players are on campus, then engaging with them Although at the same time, I know this is difficult to enforce in this way. Because if everybody told the truth, if everything was out in the open and players just showed up, would you really expect or even want coaches, a head coach, the coaching staff to ignore them?
Yeah, and that's kind of I think he kind of placed the well being of the recruits and his coaching sense, camaraderie, whatever you want to call it. He didn't want to look like a jerk, so he basically met with them even though it was a dead time and he shouldn't have. I mean, he was just being a good guy, I guess.
This makes it imperative for coaches to communicate these things to recruits, and not that they're all going to get it or want to get it, but to let them know this is what's allowed and this is what's not allowed. So, for example, you've committed, but you cannot come onto campus. Or, well, let's put it this way: I would hope and I would think they're allowed on campus just like any other citizen, that they should be allowed to come on campus whenever they want. But we cannot entertain you. We cannot engage with you if you do come on campus, and that should be communicated by Harbaugh to the players that committed.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a breakdown of communication, and I think it's going to be something that's told to recruits later on. It's like, if you do show up on campus, if you show up at the wrong time of year, you can't meet with any, athletic staff, or you're going to get them in trouble. Don't take it as a slight. They're not ignoring you. It's not like you're already signing the dotted line. Just go wait in line. You need to understand that there's repercussions for just showing up on campus at the wrong time, and it needs to be made well aware of. That way this doesn't happen in the future. I mean, not just for Michigan, but for any university that could be kind of suffer from the infractions committee kind of going ticky tack on them.
I'd like to know how they found out. Not that the players wouldn't put it on social media, or there's so many more ways to find out today than there would have been years ago. But I'm just curious.
Say, it's 2023. If you ran a stop sign in the country at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's going to be on camera somewhere.
Yeah.
That's just society these days.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to whether the NCAA is investigating to that degree, or that they got tipped off by somebody who's not who's a rival.
Well, I'm pretty sure there's not an Ohio State plant in Ann Arbor trying to dig up dirt. I mean, but like I say, I'm sure these kids probably put it on their social media for the world to see, and I'm sure that's how it got around. Because, I mean, you got to figure there's going to be people following recruits that aren't just Michigan fans. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of Michigan people following Ohio State recruits just in case this kind of thing happens too. It wouldn't surprise me.
And I say that because that was always the talking point in the SEC in the 1990s, when just about every school in the conference went on probation, was that they were turned in by somebody else. That it wasn't the NCAA doing such a bang up job of investigation and keeping tabs on everything. It was that they got turned in by somebody else.
Or by themselves. Remember Gene Jelks?
Yes. Yeah. After he left the school. Yes.
Yeah, I think didn't he tell on himself? Didn't he
Oh,
let it
yeah.
know that
He told on
Auburn
himself.
paid him?
He had nothing to lose at that point, and I guess he thought either, if you want to believe the best in people, that he somehow was coming clean, but if you believe the worst in people, or just reasonable human nature, that he could just have his 15 minutes of fame and be in Sports Illustrated and be talked about, and or maybe he had some kind of vendetta suddenly against somebody in the football program.
Yeah, who knows what motives people have, but
Yeah.
you say I'm just against this because I don't. I mean, Harbaugh had already lawyered up. The case apparently looked weak, and it looked like he was saying, "Okay, infractions committee, you're gonna have to prove it. We're not gonna sit there and admit the squat. Get your researchers out, get your lawyers, prove the case." So that's why it kind of surprised me about the 3-game ban. I thought he was just basically gonna get bullheaded and just fight him the entire way.
And I got to say, I don't know exactly where I stand on that. because to a certain extent, it is their responsibility to prove it.
Yeah,
And
and I
it's
said,
not his responsibility in some senses to cooperate.
and I think a lot of this is Michigan's very image conscious, especially their ads. I remember that was the biggest argument I had against Dave Brandon. You know, whenever he decided to take the Final Four banners from the Fab Five out from Chrysler Arena, just to kind of appease people. It's like, don't do that. And then you got Ward Manuel that seems like he's trying to do the same thing. He's kind of caving into public pressure by throwing on a meaningless 3 games. I'm surprised they didn't even take the fourth game. The fourth game is Rutgers. It's like, now I know Rutgers have been kind of playing us close to last few years, but still, they could have just gone to 4 games and been that.
Well, he's not the first one to do that, to self impose a ban, though.
Yeah, he's probably the first one I know of that did it for this and did it after lowering up and looking like he's going to fight the charges. I mean, I'm just kind of wondering why the 180.
Yeah, that's a great question. Maybe they just figure that that it's not going to be that severe enough of a penalty to be worth it, that they can get through it. So why not try to get through it as soon as possible?
And that's the only thing I can think of.
If you lose your head coach for 3 football games, and there are 3 games you've got a 99.9% chance of winning, and you don't lose anything else, it's just there's a slight embarrassment to it. There's a slight, there's some kind of impact on the team, but it's so minimal. And if he's coaching during the week, rather than letting this go on and on and on, maybe they think that this will expedite the final result, and they won't have to deal with anything more.
That's the only thing I can think of. The only positive thing I can think of is the fact that it's technically a 3. It's not even a 3. It's a 3-day ban, like I said, because he's still going to be working with them 6 days a week.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be a different guy in the headset for 3 Saturdays.
Yeah, I might be mistaken, but I think from what I remember that Urban Meyer's suspension in 2018 took him, I shouldn't even say. My thinking was that it took him away from the team for 3 weeks. I might have to look back into that. I don't remember for sure.
Well, that's a
I'm
while
sure
back. I
somebody
couldn't
in the
remember.
chat does.
Yeah, you probably have to ask an Ohio State fan on that one. That's slipping my mind. That was several years back. That was like what, 7, 8 years ago?
2018, 5.
5 years ago. Yeah. So I mean, well, that's just my 2 cents.
Anything else, Mike?
No, I'll go ahead and pass the baton to somebody else. Thanks for having me.
Okay.
Have a good one.
Appreciate it. Have a good night, Mike.
You too.
Few things to pass along, folks. Instead of the typical 4-hour Big Ten Live show, we are going to go for 2 hours here on the Big Ten Live show, and then 8 o'clock Eastern time. Just stay right here. Just stay right where you are at 8 o'clock Eastern time, and then we are going to turn things around and deliver our first prediction show of the final 2 weeks before the season officially launches, starts, kicks off in full force on Thursday night. For the next 5 consecutive days, we are unveiling our conference predictions, and we lead off with the Pac-12, which I believe is the most competitive conference in college football, at the top, where it counts in terms of competing for a championship. This conference has the most contenders for a conference championship. We're talking Jim Harbaugh, though, for the next 2 hours. We're talking Big Ten. I posted a video earlier today where I looked at spoilers, possible spoiler teams. Who are those teams? So, of course, let's take Michigan, for example. Michigan gunning for a Big Ten championship, followed by a playoff appearance and ultimately a national championship. Who most likely will spoil that for Michigan? Well, Ohio State, Penn State, obviously. That's not what we're going for here. We are going for true spoiler teams, underdog teams, those landmines in the schedule that are not obvious. So we posted our video. I believe we identified 8 teams that will not themselves compete for the college football playoff for the national championship, but could have a major impact in tripping up somebody along the line. I think we identified 8 teams. And then coming up, most likely tomorrow, we are releasing a video in which we will go through the possible upsets for week 1. Please use the Amazon link. It's in the description section of all the videos. Grab the Amazon link. You shop on Amazon anyway, most of you. So you might as well use our link. It's the same shopping experience. Shop on Amazon. Use the link in the description section. All right, our merchandise as well. And I know that most of these promotions only work with the appropriate links. And so I will get those out during the course of the next 2 hours in the chat. But be looking for the Amazon link and also the link to our merch here at the Voice of College Football. And again, we've got our prediction live streams cranking up tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern time with the Pac-12, followed then by, I believe, the ACC, the Big 12, the SEC, and the Big 10 in order. Our post-game shows start this weekend with Notre Dame Navy. We're doing our post-game courtesy the 2 Irish brothers on the Notre Dame channel following Notre Dame Navy. Might as well put it on the main channel too. Notre Dame Navy post-game, and then, of course, USC and San Jose State post-game. Speaking of which, not only do we have a USC live show tonight, as we always do with Matt Zemek from Trojans Wire. You should all be locked in on that. It's a good time with Matt each and every Monday night at 11 Eastern time, USC channel. But Tony, Tim, and Rick going live with the announcement, huge news today, that USC has named an athletic director, Jen Cohen. So Tim, Tony, and Rick going live on the USC channel at 9 Eastern time. So check it out. Have us both on at the same time, multiple laptops. We endeavor here at the Voice of College Football to be, all encompassing. So it's like when you're watching college games on Saturday, we will soon need to be having multiple devices on at the same time, laptops, phones, to just keep track of the Voice of College Football. So while we're here unveiling our Pac-12 predictions, Tim, Tony, and Rick are over there on the USC channel to discuss the big move by USC in naming Jen Cohen as AD. Chris says, I don't think the Big Ten is all that. I was actually, as I was doing some research today for a number of things, I went through Phil Steele's conference rankings. He's got the Big Ten at number 2. He has had the Big Ten at number 2 for most of the last 10 years. The SEC has been number 1 almost every year. The Big Ten has been number 2 most years over the last 10 based on his criteria. Based on my criteria, I would have to go back and look at our conference rankings that we do every offseason. This past year, it was close. It was close, numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5. But I certainly believe the Big Ten is the second best conference. I believe we've got some spoiler picks coming in. Brian says Michigan will overlook Nebraska unless Nebraska miraculously comes home 4-0 for the big game. So if you'd like to call the show to talk Big Ten football, specifically Jim Harbaugh's situation at Michigan and the self-imposed 3-game suspension to start the season, East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green, give us a call. But we'll move on to talk more about Big Ten football itself. And for me, spoiler, possibilities in the Big Ten include, number one, first and foremost, anyone who could knock off a team that is the best team in the East would be the spoiler. Maryland, spoiler. They've got 3 shots to take out Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. I don't really believe that any of the other teams in the Big Ten East, even on its best day and the other team's worst day, has a shot. Indiana, Michigan State, Rutgers, no shot at taking out the big 3. Maryland, though, and then the other spoiler for me would be the possibility of the Big Ten Western Division winner finally winning a conference championship game in Indianapolis. So Iowa, Wisconsin, I named one of those as my Big Ten spoiler this year. So check out the video. But really, it's a narrow conference when it comes to real competitiveness. Who can you really sell as a spoiler in this conference beyond Maryland or whoever wins the Big Ten West winning the conference championship game? Really comes down to that in terms of a true spoiler. Badger Bournemouth. Sorry, we missed your super chat. Let's get to it here. Badger and Bournemouth. Mark, starting next year, is it really the Big Ten anymore or just a big conference? Why would it no longer be the Big Ten? Please explain. And I know the obvious explanation is going to be because there aren't 10 teams. But when have there been 10 teams in the Big Ten? So if your name is Big Ten, regardless of whether you have 11 or 9 or 107 teams, what does it really matter? If the term 10 is directly related to the number of teams, then it doesn't matter if you're off by 1 or you're off by 1,000. So it's not been the Big Ten. If I'm following your logic, it has not been the Big Ten since 1992. So why would it change now? It's a brand name. Big Ten. It's a brand name. So no reason to change it. It would actually be stupid to change it. Why would you change one of the biggest and best and most recognizable brands in sports? You wouldn't. You got to where you are with that name. You're going into a mega TV contract that is by far the largest TV media rights deal ever, and you're doing it as the Big Ten. Conferences that change their branding, their logos, their colors are looking for a resurgence. They're looking to break through. They are looking to make a name for themselves. The Big Ten doesn't need to do that. So why would the Big Ten change its name? Yes, Mike, maybe if Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk got a hold of the Big Ten. Although, what has Zuckerberg changed? Am I missing something? I'm sure he's changed something. I don't keep up on Mark Zuckerberg. In terms of Elon Musk, of course. Is it really called X? There's just an X on Twitter now. I don't even know. It doesn't even say that it's called X, but there's a big X. So I guess that is the name of it, X. And they're just posts. They're not tweets anymore. But again, you're talking about Twitter, which is how old? I think it started in 2005 or 6 versus the Big Ten that started in 1906. Yeah. Don't touch the Big Ten. That would be dumb. Badger in Bournemouth says it's not a Midwest conference anymore. It's not about the number. So you're telling me it's not about the number. Then what does Big Ten speak to? It obviously originally spoke to a number, 10 teams. Then it became a brand, and that's the reason why they didn't change with the addition of Penn State in 1993. The name of the conference doesn't have anything to do with the Midwest. I would understand your logic if this was the Southwest Conference or the Southeastern Conference or the Atlantic Coast Conference, the Pacific 10, Pacific 12. Those all speak to areas of the country. The Big Ten doesn't speak to an area of the country. The name is not associated with an area of the country. Not at all. So, again, Badger and Bournemouth, we always appreciate your contribution, but I don't get it. There is so much fun. Is it fun or is it annoying? It's usually annoying. Rhetoric on Twitter/X. I'll continue to call it Twitter, just like I continue to call Jacobs Field and not Progressive Field, and call all sorts of other things whatever I want to, because people know what I'm talking about. There was a comment made the other day. There was a comment. No. I saw this the other day. The Washington Redskins, that there's a petition out that has gained a lot of support, over 100,000 signatures to bring back the name Washington Redskins, which I don't think is going to happen. Now, not that I'm uttering the word or talking about the Washington Redskins or Washington football team on a regular basis. So it's not, if the Washington Commanders, I had to wait and think for a second. Washington Commanders, if they played college football, then of course I would be saying their name on a regular basis. And I don't know what I would do then, because I'm sure I would say Redskins a lot, because anytime they do come up, that's usually what comes out of my mouth. I have to stop and think. What goes through my mind is Washington Generals, Washington Senators, Washington Nationals. No, Washington. Commanders. So I just say Washington Redskins usually. If I were the Washington Redskins, I would have stayed with the Washington football team. I would have been completely different than anybody else in the league, instead of putting out some stupid name that doesn't really resonate with anyone because it's new. I would have just stayed the Washington football team. All right, back to this with Notre Dame and Ohio State. So Michael, our resident, and we have several Notre Dame fans. We appreciate our Notre Dame fans, even though I rip on Notre Dame from time to time. I'm really not ripping on Notre Dame. It's misconstrued that way. I'm ripping on all of college football that allows Notre Dame to run amok and do whatever they want. So it's not Notre Dame's fault. It's like the 5-year-old that throws the tantrum in the grocery store. It's not their fault. I never walk by a 5-year-old and a parent in a grocery store with the 5-year-olds throwing a tantrum and look at the 5-year-old like, what's wrong with you? No, that's not my thought is, what's wrong with this parent? What's going on here? What's wrong with them? So I'm not in any way holding Notre Dame responsible for any of this. Not joining a conference. That's really it. And then everything else falls into play in line with that, scheduling and so forth. It's all about college football's lunacy. That it's not organized, it's not structured, it's not for the good of all of college football. It's just running amok. And we've got two big conferences throwing money at everything and doing what they want and taking the teams they want, the schools that they want, dividing up the country the way they want. So back to this. Michael says Ryan Day cannot pick his starting quarterback or starting offensive line, and Ohio State media's job is to sell this as nothing to worry about, is not looking good for 2023. Yeah, I fully expect that Ohio State is going to lose 5 or 6 games this year. I just think this looks horrible. They can't figure out who their starting offensive line is. They can't pick a starting quarter. When have we ever hit August 20th, 21st, and had a major college football team not know its starting quarterback? And when we have, those teams have always been doomed to disaster. Yes, most definitely. Most definitely. Could you imagine a Big Ten champion team? Let's say, could you imagine, let's just give them a name. So it makes it more identifiable. Could you imagine a Big Ten championship team? Let's say it's 2022, a Big Ten championship team. Let's say their name's Michigan, that didn't know who their starting quarterback was on August 20th. They would be doomed to failure. That never happens. Jalen Hurts was, of course, Alabama's starting quarterback at the beginning of 2016. And that same year, oh yeah, Sam Darnold, yes, of course he was the quarterback starting for USC at the outset of 2016. Of course, because there's never been a successful team in college football that didn't know its starting quarterback by like May 1st. Got to know him by May 1st. Oh, let me correct myself. March 1st. You got to go into spring camp knowing who your starting quarterback is, or you are headed for disaster. You are completely amok. Chaos ensuing in Columbus. On August 21st, the year 2023, let's already state it, mark it down. It's done. It's over. Michigan is the Big Ten champion. They cannot be in any way. They're a legendary team. No one will be able to, in any way, get in their way. Blank name. Yes, of course they knew. Yes, they knew. We know that. Yes, they knew who the starting quarterback was. Yes, but that's one example of 100, 200. So yeah, 2021 I meant. So no, I meant 2022. No, I meant 2022. Michael, we appreciate your hot picks. Ohio State's going to lose 3 regular season games for the first time since 2011. As opposed to Notre Dame losing 3 games like almost every year. So there's a lot of things that social media has opened up for us. Most of the things are negative, but it's that there's a lot of people out there that brag about predictions they've made that have yet to come true. And I would only want to see those people held accountable for those predictions. Like, I'm held accountable. I've got a record. I've got a prediction record. I make predictions. You see my predictions. You see my prediction record. It's easy. I always thought that if I was a head coach in the NFL, because it happens in the NFL more than other sports, and you can let me know if it happens in other sports where these players, these knuckleheads go out and they guarantee wins. This is about the stupidest thing that anyone could do. Just shut your mouth and play the game and guarantee the win by playing better than the other team or playing better than the guy opposite you. I always thought if I was a coach in the NFL and one of my players guaranteed a win, which they, of course, can't do. So it's an oxymoron in and of itself. You can't guarantee the win. So you're just a moron who doesn't know how to shut up. That I would tell that player, that's fine. Go ahead. You have freedom of speech. You have freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want, even though hopefully you'll grow up someday and you'll not make moronic statements. But we are holding you accountable for your statement. And if we win this game, you guaranteed it, we'll pat you on the back. We'll pat everyone on the back. Great job. You guaranteed the win. Fine. That's what you were supposed to do. That's what you were supposed to do, was win the game because you guaranteed it. But if we lose, you are giving up your game check. That's the deal. Maybe I would make that statement to the team before the season started. If anybody here guarantees to the media or on social media, anywhere that can be seen by people out in the public, guarantees a win, and we do not win, we're taking your paycheck for that game. If you're guaranteeing it, then there should be no problem. Should be no problem. Mike is going to guarantee the UNLV game. Sure. Mike wishes that Michigan was playing Ohio State tonight. I'm going to guarantee something. I'm going to guarantee that really no Michigan players want to play that game tonight, and no Ohio State players want to play that game tonight. It is currently 6:49 Eastern time. I think it would be rather foolish and rather stupid, and there would be a huge health risk involved if you had those players play the game at like 8 o'clock tonight. If you told them, hey, we're playing in an hour. We're playing one of the top teams in the country in an hour. I know what you mean, Mike. Mike says big potential upsets include Iowa at Penn State, Wisconsin hosting Ohio State. I would agree. Christopher said, Mark just called me a moron. Christopher, I didn't know you were in the chat, so it was impossible for me to call you a moron. Therefore, I also didn't even utter your name. So that's kind of difficult to do. Unless you're guaranteeing games. Maybe that's what I said. Mike Ford, of course, going to the obvious selection here. That always runs through my mind when I make this speech. Of course, Joe Namath guaranteed a win. Fine. That was dumb. That was stupid. But it's really not stupid because they got nothing to lose. If they would have lost the game, then he would have just looked stupid. The thing that gets lost in history is that Joe Namath, he had a lot to do with that win, but there were other players on that team that had more to do with them winning, like their defense, and Matt Snell that had more to do with them winning the game than Joe Namath. What Joe Namath couldn't do was guarantee that he would complete 50% of his passes in the NFL. He couldn't do that, or that he would throw more touchdowns than interceptions. He couldn't guarantee that. So this is what happens, folks, when I pretty much let go on my view on the Jim Harbaugh suspension of 3 games self-imposed by the university. I'm done with the topic. I will certainly talk about it if anybody wants to call the show, and certainly unveiled my basic 2 spoiler scenarios in the Big Ten. Penn State beats Ohio State, and that knocks Ohio State out of the Big Ten championship. I don't consider Penn State a spoiler because they are supposed to be in the hunt. I mean, an underdog, a nobody, somebody out of the race. That's what a spoiler is. A spoiler is the Week 16 NFL game where the 5-10 team beats the 11-4 team and knocks them out of the division championship spot. Whatever. Or in college football here, knocks a team out of the race, costs them a shot at a conference or national championship. So for me, Maryland, Big Ten Western Division winner. Those are the only 2 conceivable outcomes that I see as a spoiler in the Big Ten. Am I missing anything here? Please let me know. Am I missing anything? Give me a spoiler in the Big Ten that is not Maryland or the Big Ten Western Division winner. And neither one of those is likely. I'm not saying they're likely. I'm not making a prediction. We will make our Pac-12 predictions here at 8 o'clock Eastern time, which, by the way, I didn't really forget. I didn't have time. Did not have time to make any graphics for that, unfortunately. So everyone's going to have to listen. We will have prediction and graphics for the rest of the week as we march through the ACC, the Big 12, the SEC, and the Big 10, which takes us, I believe, to Saturday. Maybe we will do a pregame to Notre Dame Navy and unveil the final conference championship game predictions and the college football playoff predictions. Maybe we can do that. Unless I missed it, I believe I had Georgia and Ohio State in last year's national championship game, so I messed up there. Got that wrong. I believe I had Georgia over Ohio State by about a touchdown in the national championship game. Kind of was the national championship game. Year before, I don't remember. I'll have to go through all the old videos and then write these down. So I've got these at my disposal. I used to be really good at tracking all the predictions, which they're all on record. They're all time-stamped. And we got a request from David Greenshield a few weeks ago to post my prediction record throughout the years. So need to do that. I'll have to write that down. Put that on my to-do list. Prediction records through the years, because you can join us on Patreon and get my predictions week to week. I pick all the top 25 games plus any other games of interest. So we usually predict about 20 to 25 games per week. And so you can join us on Patreon, patreon.com/MarkRogersTV. Sign up there. My predictions. I believe I'm taking a poll right now to determine whether people still want the media predictions from guys like Steve Hellwagon, Tony Gerdeman, Steve Dace, Corey Bratta, and others. We had about 12 or 15 media types that delivered their predictions on our 12-pack each week. I don't know who won that last year. I won it the first year. I don't think I won last year. I did not have the best record last year. I did the year before. Also, I have people comment to me all the time that they would like me to show up at a particular stadium for a game, which is very nice of all of you. The Florida State fans tell me from time to time, hey, Mark, we would love to see you at a game. Come on down to a Florida State game. Iowa fans, the same thing. Nebraska fans are probably the most. I probably get that from the Husker fans the most. You have to come to a game, Mark. You don't know what you're missing. It's the best experience in college football. The best fans got to come to a game. Absolutely. So I would like to go on tour across the nation to all the various college football games. Really, the only two things we need sponsorship support, and we need a place to set up, whether that be somewhere at the stadium, outside the stadium, some type of parking area where they tailgate, place outside the stadium that we're working on for a particular game right now, or at a local bar and grill kind of place, a watering hole outside the stadium somewhere close. So clue us into a location and sponsorship, and we will be headed your way. That doesn't mean you need to get the sponsorship. That doesn't mean you need to find us the place. But if you can give us a great suggestion in regards to what places we should be hitting up so we can make that happen, that would be phenomenal. So pick your favorite college football team. And if you have any connections to, again, any local spots, and certainly a connection, if you got a connection at the university in regards to facilities, that would be really helpful to get us set up outside the stadium. But again, any local spots where you have ties, you know the owner, you know people that work there, whatever. And then also sponsorships, businesses that are into college football, into that school, that team, give us those leads and we will look into it. Would love to show up at Iowa for a football game this year. Would love to go to Nebraska for a football game this year. Preferably the northern games in September, and then we can work our way south as the season goes. It will have to be an extra special sponsorship to get me to Madison, Wisconsin the last weekend of November. All right. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Sean's on the line. Sean, how you doing?
Fantastic, Mark. How about yourself?
I am doing just fine. What's going on?
Oh, nothing much. Just gearing up. Just had our last weekend without college football until the end of the year. So very exciting times. Summer's going, which makes me a little sad. Summer where I live is we have 4 gorgeous months of the year weather-wise, and the rest of it's just you have to deal with it. So
4 gorgeous months: May, June, July, and August, or something close to that.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, about that. Like,
where do you live?
Mid-May through mid-September. What?
Do you live like in the UP or somewhere?
No, I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay,
so
it's a little cooler there than where I'm located.
Yeah, absolutely. But underrated aspect, I'll say this last thing. We get about the most hour of sunlight at night as possible because we're as far west in the Eastern time zone. So my brother who lives in Milwaukee, sun goes down about an hour earlier, and it's a huge difference that you never think about. Okay.
You don't think about that. That has crossed my mind, though, in thinking about living in certain places, that, yes, if you position yourself in the time zone correctly, then, yeah, you can maximize your sunlight.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, Sean.
Okay.
What you got?
Jim, so obviously, news of the day, HARBAUGH. I have thought Michigan should not fight this the whole time. I thought they might have been fools if they delayed this, and then he had to serve a suspension at a different time. When it was 4 games, I said, just sit it. Just take your medicine right here. You are never going to have an easier slate of games ever that you're going to miss. I mean, you've got. I mean, the best team in that first 4 games is East Carolina, probably. That's their most dangerous opponent. They're favored by 35, I saw, against East Carolina the opening week. And that's probably their toughest game in those first 4. I don't know why they could only make it worse by fighting this. I mean, this was a nothing punishment to begin with. And I don't know. You think it was just pride or something? Why they dug their heels in? On this?
So when the head coach wants something and the head coach has that much equity at a place and the university thinks something else and the athletic department, I think it's possibly a tough situation to try to do everything that you can to support your coach and believe him and trust his judgment and fight for him, but also face facts and reality that it's a losing battle and he may have or definitely did something, whether you consider it right or wrong, against the rules. Urban Meyer was obviously not pleased with the university self-imposing a 4-game or a 3-game suspension on him in 2018. He did not go for that at all. No. But in that situation with Urban Meyer, they actually had they had a game against TCU, who was the top 20, top 15, top 20 preseason team that season. It was, I mean, so there was, I heard your conversation earlier. I'm pretty sure he was not allowed. Yeah, I didn't think
allowed access. I'm pretty sure he was not allowed access to the facility past, once the season started. Once it was the week of the first game, I think I'm definitely not positive about that, but I think you were right.
Yeah, that's much more severe of a penalty.
Oh, much more.
Rather than, you still have, you almost, when you're playing those kind of opponents, UNLV, Bowling Green, you almost have your time with the team that is more important than actually going out and winning the game by 40 points.
I mean, what a coach does on game day, it's somewhere between 5 and 10% of a coach's value, I think. I don't think, I mean, it's important. It matters, the decisions they make.
Hey, Sean, you still with us? Hello, Sean?
Mark?
Yes.
Okay, did you hear me? Okay, yeah. So, okay. What I was saying is, it's what a coach does on game day is about, I'd say, 5 to 10% of a coach's value, something like that. You there?
I got you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. So, no, how you prepare the team in practice, what you do, certainly in fall camp, everything. I mean, and how you structure, the entire organization outside of it, so much more important than what they do on game day. Football might be a game where the coach matters more than other sports. I've been a wrestling coach for a lot of my life, and I basically say there's almost no need for me to even be at the meet. I basically am just a cheerleader. You do almost nothing. It's very little value. Football, it's a little different, but still, I mean, if Harbaugh was facing a possible suspension from the team for that amount of time, that would be a big deal. But this is nothing. His presence there is nominal. It's ceremonial in these games. Yes. It's and I was going to say, have you ever seen a legit national title contender have a weaker first 8-9 games of a season than Michigan has this year?
Probably not. I can't imagine who that would have been. They don't play any of the good teams in the West, and that's before, of course, they play anybody in the East. No, I can't remember that. I would, if I started looking, I would go to some of the Big East teams, and some of the schedules that Miami faced at times were pretty weak.
Yeah. Virginia Tech was in there usually, and West Virginia had some good teams in there.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, they draw Nebraska, Minnesota, and Purdue from the West. None of them are projected to be killers, to be the best versions of themselves this year. And I'm just wondering. I wonder if that's a bad thing for Michigan. The fact that it's just. I mean, if you're a national title, I think you should have some games where you get pushed a little bit, or where some of your flaws can get exposed. Not to say that. Yeah.
Oh, there's certainly something to getting tested. Although I think the difference here is, number one, they went through that this year, and with so many players coming back and so much production, it's not like they're going through this for the first time. So they've played Ohio State and Penn State and TCU, and they had a close game against Illinois and a pretty close game against Maryland. So they've been tested. Just it may not be this year that they can draw upon that experience. And then the other thing is that this should help them. Most of the time you accumulate, and I don't know if anyone's tracked this statistically, but accumulate more injuries against better teams because they hit harder, and it's you have to play more snaps, the better players, more snaps. So it only makes sense. And they're going to have, a Penn State challenge on the road, and they're going to have somewhat of a Maryland challenge on the road.
That Maryland game, that strikes me as like the trappiest of all trap games.
Yeah.
Right in between their two big tests of the year.
Yeah.
It looks almost in the preseason projections, they're definitely the third best team on their schedule. And to have them on the road right in between those two spots is it's not ideal. I would rather have the Indiana game that week than have to travel to Maryland for sure. So have you heard anything about the Ohio State quarterback situation? I heard Day was planning on announcing it soon. That's just one of the Cleveland.com, I think, was reporting that we should know well before the week of the game.
We did our last Ohio State show on Friday, and at that point, Day had just said, I believe the day before, that he said by the end of next week, I will be announcing a starting quarterback. And his reason given was that he wanted to give the starter 70% of the reps in practice going into the first game.
Yeah, that's exactly what I had heard too. And that's an interesting number, 70%. So that means the backup's still getting 30%, which is a lot.
Number. Yeah.
That's a lot. Do you suspect we'll see significant action, meaningful action from both quarterbacks? Because that kind of sounds like what he's saying to me, if I'm reading between the lines correctly.
Yeah, if he's given himself a deadline to announce the starter, then it sounds like he's still undecided, and it sounds like it's still a pretty good competition if he's giving himself a deadline. And then only giving 70% to the starter makes it sound like that even if he knows who the starter is, and he will, because he's given himself this deadline and he will name a starter, that starter is not entrenched, especially if maybe I'm playing a little too much into this because of his inexperience. I shouldn't. That if Devin Brown is the backup, that he could still be incorporated a la JJ McCarthy because he brings a different dimension to the offense. That they could have plays designed for Devin Brown, just like JJ McCarthy in 2021.
Yeah, that's that. that could work out. I mean, I don't know how well that exactly worked for Michigan. I mean, I think that cost them the Michigan State game. I don't know how much it really. That doesn't seem like Day's style anyway. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. He's never had a QB battle, this close. I don't think in the past. Right. So so well, okay. Sorry, I'm sorry. I just got distracted there for a second. The West right now, Wisconsin, Iowa. Is there any sort of? Is this going to be like last year, where a week before the season there were like 6 teams still in 6 teams still in contention, and you had to have like a John Nash pie chart to figure out what scenarios who would win?
I hope so. I like those situations. I like crazy 3-loss, jammed at the top, log jam type situations in divisions. I love that.
Yeah.
It's doubtful that we'll have that again, but it's possible, of course.
Yeah. So there's a lot of love for Wisconsin this year, and
yes.
I heard Phil. I remember listening to your interview with Phil Steele, and I was surprised that he had them as high as he did. There's a ton of. There's so much transition for them this year. It seems to me it's like there's some sort of quota for the Big Ten West. Like we got to hype somebody up. We got to put somebody in the top 20. So yeah, it might as well be them. They're the biggest brand name in that side of the league. But without really thinking, he had to go to the transfer portal to find all of his receivers basically, and his quarterback. And
yeah, I think it has to do with the Wisconsin brand, but I think it has more to do with the Luke Fickell brand. I think a lot of people are believers in Luke Fickell, and I am too. I just don't know about year one.
You know what his first record was? His first year at Cincinnati?
4-8.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it didn't happen over, and he was also 6-7 that one year at Ohio State too. It doesn't. There's absolutely no reason to think that this is going to happen overnight. And I think there's so much emphasis on what they're changing offensively, when I think the changes defensively are a lot more important to this team, because that's been what this team has been the past 3 years. They've done nothing offensively. They've been horrible on offense. So if there's transition, okay, they've been bad. They might continue to be very bad. But where this team has won has been by just beating people up on the defensive side of the ball. They lose possibly the best defensive coordinator in the country, and they're bringing in a completely different scheme. Tressel has been a good defensive coordinator in the past, but it's been with players recruited and developed towards the scheme, and that's not what he's inheriting right now. So if they take a step back and the offense has trouble, like people are projecting, I don't see where there's that much excitement for the 2023 Badgers.
I think the excitement is just the opportunity of playing in that division, and that they're just as good as everybody else, and they're bringing in a quarterback who statistically is the most productive in his career, and they bring in a coach who's gone to a playoff, who's turned around a program, doesn't need to really turn one around here. They have the best running back in the division. They have, along with Iowa, the best front 7 in the division, and probably the best offensive line, although Illinois is good up front. And so I don't know about Iowa, if they're going to be that good along the offensive line. So there's a lot to like there, but it's certainly not a guarantee by any stretch. I think Iowa's the most dependable, reliable team that has the highest floor.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think Illinois is the most intriguing.
I would agree. I don't know. I've seen Iowa having like over under win totals at like 7.5 this offseason. And looking at their schedule, like that just seems like they're handing out welfare checks.
It does, doesn't it?
I mean, it's just
it does, but
yeah. I mean, I've got a fair amount of action on that. Just I jumped on. I'm like, that just looks like a given, like a gift. I mean, they win those most years anyway, and they have an extremely generous crossover schedule this year, and the West is pretty bad. The West is, I think, weaker than the West hasn't been good, and they look worse this year than they have in the past.
Yeah. I can't really differentiate the West from what it's been in the past. I think it's just as deep, if not deeper, with mediocrity than it's been, but there's no team like Wisconsin was a few times, and really Wisconsin's been the only one that's really surfaced as a team that can go outside the division and win a prominent bowl game or compete nationally. Iowa's not been able to do that in forever. Even the 2015 team didn't do that. So yeah, I don't know, but I think it's a deep division of mediocrity. I think, Illinois is better than they've been, and Minnesota is a strong team. There's a bunch of teams there's 4 or 5 teams that are top 30 or 35 teams in the country. Right, Sean? I think I'll let you go. I think we lost you again.
Have a good one.
All right, Sean. Thanks. We will keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate Erica's support and loyalty here. Making sure that she checks us out live from O'Hare Airport. Been there many times. Next up, Michael Hoag's in the building. Look at this. Hello, Michael.
Hey, Mark. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How you been?
I'm hanging in there. I don't like your new schedule, but I got to get used to it because it's messing up with my work time and stuff, so I got to readjust, but it is what it is.
My new schedule?
Well, what's the streaming stuff? Because
I'm wrong with my streaming schedule.
It's the process when I'm usually on my way to work or already at work, sir.
Okay. What works better for you?
No, I'm just one person, but I was just wondering.
I know you're just one person. I'm just curious.
I don't know, like the way you used to do it in the past and stuff like that. But anyway, I do got a question though. I know Purdue. I think the over/under for most people is for Purdue is 4 to 5 wins this year.
Yeah, I looked at it the day it came out. I don't remember. I think it's 4.5. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think there's a chance that they could actually go over, or do you think it's going to be right about where they think it's going to be this year?
Well, I think that they play 3 non-conference games that are just toss-ups. They could be 3-0 or 0-3 after those 3 games and really not be that much different of a team, meaning they could be 3-0 after those 3 games. And even though the record would say they're undefeated, just they slipped by 3 games, or they could be 0-3 and really just as good a football team, but they just found a way to lose. And that's obviously going to be the make or break. Or those non-conference games they're all close to 50-50 kind of games.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's some of those games in the conference schedule that they can sneak up and beat some of the teams they're expected to lose to this year? And for Mike Ford, that could happen. But I think something's going to happen. There's going to be some fluke wins this year for Purdue.
Fluke wins. Well, I know who they play in the West, of course. I'm opening up their schedule right now to familiarize myself with who they've got in the East, which would be Ohio State. So that's not a great one. Michigan on the road and Indiana, of course. So you drew as bad a schedule as you possibly could. So
Yeah.
Ryan Walters, I'm sorry that had to happen to you your first year, that you got the two best teams in the conference.
Yeah, they better hope that October 14th game is not a night game in Ross State Stadium.
Who better not hope that?
Ohio State.
Yeah, I get your point. Things happen, but yeah, I don't know that Ohio State's. Yeah, again, I know what you're saying, but yeah, if Ohio State's. Yeah, I understand your historical reference there. It certainly could happen again. But my goodness, if Ohio State can't win that game, then although they were a college football playoff caliber team in 2018, and that was the only game they lost the whole season. So you're right.
Yeah. And like I said, is that ever going to happen where Purdue in my lifetime, where Purdue beats Wisconsin again?
When's the last time they beat Wisconsin?
2003.
They haven't beaten Wisconsin since 2003.
Yeah.
Games at home this year. Well, man, they better win one of these. They better win one of these out of conference games, because then they've got Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, Ohio State.
I think Illinois will be a little better, but Iowa, I don't think they're going to be that good again. Yeah, they got a better with McNamara, but I'm just going past that. I don't think Iowa's going to be. When it's all said and done, I think Wisconsin will win the West this year, but I don't think it'll be Iowa.
Michael, if your team's 3-4 after 7 games, just be overjoyed with that. Just be ecstatic.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I will. And stuff like that. But I'm just thinking somehow, some way, they're going to squeak out 6 to 7 this year. If they, my thing is this: if they run a non-conference table, I think they will end up with 6 wins this year, maybe 7.
Well, sure. If they win the non-conference schedule, they've got a chance. I think most likely, Michael, that they'll win one of those games. And then out of that first stretch of Big Ten games before their bye week, they'll, I guess, win one of those games, most likely Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
They'd be 2-5 at that point. And then let's say they win at Nebraska and they beat Northwestern, they beat Indiana. There's 5 games. That's about where I'm at.
All right. So do you think they'll lose to both Fresno State and Syracuse? Or were you talking about the Big Ten portion of the schedule?
Well, I was talking about them losing, 2 out of 3 non-conference games.
So Syracuse is going to be that good. And Fresno State, I know, but I don't think Virginia Tech going to be a lot better than people think this year?
No.
So you're thinking they'll lose the home opener into Syracuse?
Probably, but that Virginia Tech game's on the road. Blacksburg, difficult place to play. It is a noon game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I am just pretty strong in that they're going to go 1-2 non-conference. I don't know which ones are going to be which.
Okay. No,
it doesn't really matter. Does it matter to you if they won 1 out of 3, which one it is?
I'm just thinking somehow, some way they're going to do it. The only one I think they could lose to was Fresno State. But like I said, I don't know how good Syracuse is going to be this year. Or was that a fluke season for them last year?
I don't know that it was a fluke season. I think that was That was on the high end. I think Syracuse is going to be in the 5 or 6 win range too.
I mean, yeah, even though I'm sure Syracuse isn't going to forget about what happened to them in 2004, but that was several years ago and stuff like that when Purdue smacked them 51-0.
Yeah,
But that was
I
eons
guarantee
ago in college
none of these
football.
players have ever heard of that game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The biggest incentive of anything that's happened recently would be, of course, what happened last year.
And where Purdue basically gift wrapped the game there to them at the end and stuff. So, what game are you looking forward to this weekend? Considering there isn't much going on.
I think the best game is going to be Ohio against San Diego State. I think that's going to be the most competitive game. So if I could only watch one game, I guess I'd watch that game.
Is that CBS Sports Network?
I believe so. Now, for those people that watch the big teams, of course, and that I do that, USC and Notre Dame are playing. I don't know how much we're going to be able to get out of those games, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but no, I was wondering stuff. So, other than that, how's your summer been?
Summer's been good. Michael, how about you?
Yeah, not bad. I apologize for not being able to meet up with you in Indy a couple weeks ago.
That's all right, Michael.
Yeah, not bad. No, I was wondering. No, so are you doing a post-game show, abbreviated version Saturday night?
Abbreviated version. We will have a USC post game with our USC guys on Saturday. So I don't know exactly how we're going to work that because there's no reason for me to do a post game at the same time they're doing a post game.
Yeah.
So we'll figure it out.
All right. I was just wondering stuff like that. All right, sir. I'm going to get going. Enjoy the rest of I'll try to catch the rest of the show. And I usually catch the show, but it's usually already after when it's over with.
Gotcha. Well, we will be here on Saturday nights after all the games. So.
No, let's talk about the Big Ten.
Oh, the Big Ten show. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So it's every Monday at 6, I take it?
Every Monday at 6 for 25 consecutive weeks. Yes.
All right, then. Sounds good. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Michael.
See ya.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Sorry I missed you. And I'm not getting that. All right, everyone. Appreciate you being here. The voice of college football. 7:30. And we will switch things around at 8 o'clock Eastern time to present our Pac-12 predictions and get your response. So we could have released those a long time ago, of course. I did release a Washington video with my predictions at a point in which I was hoping to get all those prediction videos out. That didn't happen. Too busy, too much going on to get to all the teams. So we just figure we'll do it this way as we've done in the past and release all the Pac-12 predictions tonight and get your immediate response. Welcome into the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
What's going on? Hey, you caught yourself there, Mark. Good job, man. You caught yourself. You didn't say go blue.
I did not.
Okay,
Can't
man.
make that
Look,
mistake again.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to catch you last time, man. Just, it's the way the cookie crumbled, I guess.
Yeah,
but.
as they say, fool me twice, shame on me. So I didn't let that happen.
Hey, man, I don't know how I feel about this self-imposed, suspension because one, it's one game less than what they had proposed, which got denied. Two, are they looking for like a time served? Is that what the goal here is? Because obviously the NCAA wasn't happy with the 4-game suspension. They wanted more than that. So you go with the 3-game self-imposed suspension. Are you trying to get like a time served for next year? Like I'm just confused, man. I'm just confused.
Well, I'm a bit confused myself because it's pretty obvious that if the infractions committee turned down 4 games, then unless their investigation finds out, and usually does an investigation uncover facts or information that's going to help the defending party. So that's usually not the case. So if anything, the investigation just is going to turn up more and more allegations and more violations, I should say. So if they weren't satisfied with 4 games, to throw out the 3, your guess is as good as mine as to
Yeah, I just don't get
Maybe
it,
just
man.
making sure that, let's say Michigan is guessing it's going to land at 5.
Yeah,
Let's just say that they thought, okay, we tried to negotiate 4, they didn't take it, and now there's nothing in play until they finish up with their investigation. And if they slap us with 5 later, that's really going to hurt. So why don't we get 3 out of the way? I don't know.
that's assuming the NCAA rolls with that, right? Are they kind of assuming? Can the NCAA be like, yeah, I know you imposed 3 games, but we're still going to suspend you 5 for 2024? Couldn't they theoretically do that?
Oh, theoretically, but they're going to acknowledge the 3 that they suspended. They're
Okay.
not going to say we don't acknowledge that at all, and we were going to suspend him 5 games, and we're still going to suspend him 5 games. No, they would take that into account.
So it's almost like a preemptive measure.
Sure, it is.
I don't know, man. I still think, one, you are in a way kind of admitting to guilt by not, even though they haven't said that that he's actually done anything on the Michigan side, but by giving him a self-imposed suspension, you are acknowledging. And maybe they just they're like, we can't win this. I don't know what the case is. But at the same time, I can see the NCAA being like, "Oh, really? 3 games? He's going to give him a 3-game and kind of getting petty about that." I don't know, man. I just think it's a circus. I think it's an absolute circus at this point. And I would love to get more information, but we're going to have to wait on that.
Well, schools are always going to undershoot self-imposed penalties.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. I'm talking about Ohio State a little bit, man. That's a real interesting situation. I must admit, the quote about half the coaches want to go one way with the quarterback room, the other half of the coaches want to go that way. If that's coach speak, that's coach speak. But do you have any credence, and what do you think that says about the situation that potentially half of the coaches want to go with this quarterback and half of the coaches wanted to go with the other quarterback?
Well, that's really not coach speak. That's pretty honest assessment. That's not coach speak. Coach speak would say that we're all in this together and we're going to come to the same conclusion, and we've got consensus in the room. No coaching staff wants to say half of us want this and half of us want the exact opposite.
So what do you think that says then? Let's just say that's what happened, which it sounds like that's what did happen. What do you think that says about the QB situation? Do you think that this could go? How many games do you think that this potentially could be a seesaw?
Oh, it's not going to be a seesaw for long because they can't allow it to be a seesaw. So they're going to make a decision. They're going to make a decision. And if the quarterback, regardless of how close they are, once they make a decision, if that quarterback performs, then that quarterback will stay the quarterback. If the quarterback doesn't meet expectations, then they'll make a change. Let's put it this way. If they select Kyle McCord and he goes out there the first 3 weeks and throws for 300 yards and has 13 touchdown passes and no interceptions, then he's going to hang on to the job, regardless of whether in practice Devin Brown is still showing that he's just as good as Kyle McCord. They went with Kyle McCord and he's performing on the field. But if they're neck and neck and McCord gets the nod in game 1, and let's say he's okay the first game, he's okay the second game, and then, he hits game number 3. And I would think if he's just okay the first 2 weeks, like he's hit or miss, a little good, a little bad, but Devin Brown's just as good in practice, that the game before Notre Dame, that they will say both of these quarterbacks are playing in this game. And then they'll decide who the guy is for the Notre Dame game.
Here's where this could get messy, though. I've heard some people compare this to the Michigan quarterback situation last year. I don't think it's anything like that. I think the coaches knew they wanted JJ that whole time. Sure. I think there was a dynamic of, K took us to the playoff. We don't want to just, spit on his reputation, so to speak. So we're going to give him a game. We're going to give JJ the easiest game, which was the Hawaii game. We know he's our guy, blah, blah, blah. This to me is a classic 2 QB situation that could get very messy. So let's say Kyle McCord does do what you said, 13 touchdowns, 300 yards a game, right? But has a terrible Notre Dame game, right? They don't bench him. They keep him as a starter. They got one loss. He plays well, the next couple games. And then the next challenge comes up, has another poor performance. Maybe they skate by. I could see a dynamic forming where there's this quarterback behind me who's been right there the whole time, and now I'm starting to struggle in these big games. Does that start affecting my performance? And then maybe the Penn State game comes along. Let's say they lose that game, and he has an okay, but like there's a situation here where he could still be playing well in the majority of his games, but in the big games, maybe he's not. And since it was such a close battle, it could end up being this messy dynamic between the two quarterbacks. I mean, I can see something like that happening.
Well, I think there's a difference between a messy dynamic and a tough decision. So if Kyle McCord rips through 3 opponents like they're nothing, but they're all awful, and then he struggles against Notre Dame, and then he has another decent game, then he struggles against somebody else. Well, if at that point Devin Brown is either playing better than him in practice, or the coach is he's playing just as well or within range, Devin Brown's going to be the starting quarterback. He's going to be put into the lineup if Kyle McCord, if they lose against Notre Dame, and it's his responsibility if he had a lot to do with it, and then they lose, either they lose another game or he has another poor performance a couple weeks later, then Devin Brown, unless Devin Brown's just not showing anything in practice and they just have to stay with Kyle McCord, Devin Brown's going to, the only thing that they don't want to have happen, the biggest issue is if you pull someone and then the replacement is just as bad, if not worse.
That was going to be my next point. That was actually going to be my next point. I was going to say, and I don't think either one of them are going to be necessarily bad. I'm just saying when you have such a close battle like this, it becomes in the big games, right? Let's say you pull the guy and you put the other guy in. He hasn't really had as many reps. He's had the 30%, like you said, up to this point. He's only had 30% through the weeks. He may be able to reach that ceiling if he had the reps, but since he doesn't, what if he goes in there, he struggles, maybe he's slightly better, maybe he struggles as much. Now you just have this like a seesaw, like I said, where the decision just becomes super tough throughout the season. It's like, who do we stick with? Like that's a possibility no one's really talking about. Everybody talking about
the possibility, but I'll tell you the probability. The probability is, when is the last time an Ohio State quarterback struggled?
That's true. Look, I'm with you on that, man. I'm with you. But when's the last 2000? You know what? Perfect example. When's the last time the Ohio State's had a situation like this? 2015. What did that cause?
Yeah,
a lot of offensive issues.
12-1.
They went 12-1 because let's be real, that team, unanimous favorite to win the championship. But offensively, throughout that year, they had a lot of struggles.
Oh, they did.
I mean, So what I'm saying is, this could be. I don't think we can compare this to all the other years, because all the other years Ohio State had their guy. They picked their guy and they rolled with them. I don't remember a situation like this in 2015. Oh, they're going to pick their guy. But I'm just saying, I don't remember a situation like this since JT Barrett and Cardale Jones, where it was such a tight knit thing where they really, do we go this guy? We got to split the reps now. We got to share 30% this way. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think we can just say that this is just any other Ohio State QB situation year.
Yeah. It also could be a positive.
That's true. That's true. I'm with you on that, man.
Pushing each other to get better, to be better, and also the backup is ready to go because he's played a lot.
It could be 2021 Michigan. It could be 2021 Michigan. I mean, look, that worked out. I know the other caller was talking about the Michigan State game. I think that actually that dynamic was they handled that as well as you could have handled a 2 QB situation, whatever, in 2021. It could be like that. Now, the difference is Cade McNamara is not nearly as talented as these two Ohio State quarterbacks. He just wasn't. So that's not a fair comparison. I think if they did, on a positive side, figure out this 2 QB situation, it would be a much better 2 QB situation than even the 2021. That's the positive way to look at it, just because of the talent of those 2 QBs.
Yeah.
So
You make a lot of great points, and the most meaningful one is that it's just interesting. It's intriguing. We can all conjecture, and that's what we do. The most likely outcome that I believe, and I'm not saying this is the only thing that's going to happen, and I'm not saying this is guaranteed because I don't make guarantees, is that whoever they choose to be the quarterback is going to have an exceptional season. That's most likely what's going to happen.
yeah, based off
they have 2 excellent choices, and they are determining whoever trots out against Indiana, they have made the decision he's the better quarterback, or he's at least the better quarterback for this team right now. So,
Oh yeah,
and know that if he, God forbid, gets knocked out of the game, the first series of the game, if it's Tom Brady 2008, and he gets knocked out the first drive of the first game, there should actually be more confidence that the backup's going to be prepared to play than he would have been normally.
and that's something Michigan can't say this year. If we're being honest, JJ goes out, they don't have the same quality backup to come in.
We don't think so.
Well, yeah, we don't think so. Well, I mean, but obviously we're basing this off of recruiting rankings because
we're being
Devin Brown is just as much college playing time as any backup QB on Michigan. So in that case, yeah, that's how I see it. But we're gonna find out, man.
JT Barrett was not a highly ranked quarterback, and he was a 4-star. He was a decent recruit. He was coveted, but he wasn't some mega recruit. He was about 35th ranked at quarterback, something like that. And a week before the season, Braxton Miller got knocked out of camp, and JT Barrett was the starter. And 12
what
games
was Cardale
later,
Jones
they're the Big Ten champion and going to the playoff.
What do you remember what Cardale Jones was as a recruit? Like, what his was he a 5-star? Or was he a 4-star?
He was a 4-star, but he wasn't super high in the rankings. I'll look it up.
So I'm a big believer in quarterbacks, man. I'm more of an outlier with this. Yes, you need the talent, but there's something to be said about having that dog in you as a quarterback. JT Barrett had that dog in him. When you needed a play, when you needed a first down, he got you a first down. Stetson Bennett, no one talks about this either. I know Carson Beck is talented, but even though Carson Beck's more talented, it might turn out that Stetson Bennett just had that edge to him and that dog in him, and he made plays when you needed him. And you have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have that dog in you, I mean, to me, that can make all the difference in the world. But the biggest variable probably with Ohio State that we need to see is the offensive line, because if you can't protect as well as you've been the past couple of years, it's not really going to matter as much who's back to throwing the ball. So there's a lot of variables to look out for. I'm excited to see how it plays out. Really, we got to wait till that Notre Dame game. So appreciate you, Mark.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate the call. Have a good one. And that's something that I'm sure every head coach wants to make the decision just based on the quarterback's play, and that's it. But when you have 2 different type of quarterbacks, and one of them is dynamic running and the other one is not, McCord is not, Brown is, and you've got an offensive line that's young and you're trying to figure it out, and inexperienced, talented, and maybe they're playing well, maybe they're coming around. That's what they say there is happening in camp, that the offensive line is fine and that it's gelling and that it's coming together and they're improving every day. They're telling us all the right things, but if that's not the case, then logic would tell you would side, if the quarterback race is close, with the mobile guy that can run out of difficulty, that doesn't need, he needs time to throw, just like a pocket passer. They all need the same, but he's got escapability. And he can also put pressure on the defense by maybe designing some runs for him, or also just allowing him to improvise. However, if McCord's the guy that's got a quicker release that can get rid of the ball and makes it quicker, more, not just an accurate pass, but a better decision under pressure, that negates a pass rush as well, and plays into negating a poor offensive line. Cardell Jones. These two numbers aren't syncing up for me. I'm looking him up on 247 Sports, and he was the 90th rated player in the country. So he was higher than I really remember. 90th overall as a 4-star, 8th rated pro style quarterback, 16th rated player in the state of Ohio. Either Ohio high school football has declined that much since then, and that's not the case, because actually Ohio high school football's had a small resurgence. It's generally declined, of course, over the decades. It has considerably, but had a small resurgence here in the last couple of years. But if you're the 16th rated player in Ohio, you're a 3-star, and you're number 400, 450. So this particular year, those two numbers aren't coming together for me. But again, according to his page on 247 Sports, Cardell Jones was the 8th rated pro style quarterback in the 2014. It had to have been the 2014 class, and number 16 in Ohio, number 90 overall. Now, JT Barrett, I think, was the 33rd rated quarterback. That's what's in my head. JT Barrett. Yeah, these rankings aren't. Yeah, there's something wrong with once these guys go pro. I don't know. That's not correct. JT Barrett was not a 100 national player, number 3 dual threat quarterback, 11th rated player in the state of Texas. That's not right. He was not that highly ranked. I'm looking right at it, but I've looked at it a zillion times since 2014, and JT Barrett was not the 11th rated player in the state of Texas. That's a crazy ranking. That's really high. Anyway, we'll not go into ancient history here. Appreciate all of you here at the Voice of College Football. We go with our Pac-12 predictions coming up at 8 o'clock Eastern time right here at the Voice of College Football. This is how we will attack it this year. It was the plan months and months and months ago to release individual prediction videos. That would be best for the channel, actually, to release those individual prediction videos that would do well. Ohio State and USC and Penn State and Alabama and Clemson and those kind of teams, those individual videos. But hey, we got late in the summer, too much to do, too much to get accomplished. And therefore, we are going to release our predictions via live stream and get your direct response here at the Voice of College Football. So we knock out the Pac-12 tonight. Then we go to, I believe, the ACC, then the Big 12, then the SEC, then the Big 10, and we will knock out our college football playoff predictions. And maybe I'll do a little research so I can present by the end of the week how my playoff predictions preseason have done. I know that one year I got them all right. Don't remember what year that was. I got all 4. I think maybe 2020. Anyway, one year I got them all preseason. And then I also predicted the national champion of 3 or 4 years in a row. We got that, like 2015, 16, 17, 18 range, somewhere in there. And again, last year, we had one half of our Final Four was not good at all. Not good. Although one of them almost made the playoff. but we did predict Georgia to defeat Ohio State in the national championship game. And they kind of did. They kind of did. All right. Going once, going twice, going three times in terms of calls. We will see you at 8 o'clock Eastern time. Let us get this turned around. If nobody else wants to chime in on the Big Ten and Harbaugh and everything else we discussed tonight, keep in mind, we've got merch at thevoiceofcollegefootball.com. We will get you the link on the next show. Also, the Amazon links in the description section of all the videos. Please put it somewhere where you will remember it. The Amazon link, amazon.com. Just grab the link, put it somewhere, use it, help us grow the channel, build the channel. We've got an SEC channel. And again, we will put all these links in the next show. I see our buddy Tim Prangley's here. One more reminder on the big special coming up at 9 Eastern time on the USC channel. Jen Cohen named athletic director at Southern California. Big show coming up, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific, USC channel. Check it out. Our aim is to force you to open up multiple screens, multiple devices to track us here at the Voice of College Football. I will see you in 5 minutes or so for the Pac-12 prediction show right here at the Voice of College Football. See you soon.